We've got divisional round football coming up this weekend with 4 big matchups in the NFL playoffs. We're down to the last 8 teams. EDJ returns to the podcast. How are you doing, buddy?
Well, the Jags crushed my hopes and dreams, but that's okay. I'm doing all right. Other than that, but very exciting football games in the first round. Just competitive as all get out, so a lot to talk about there, but looks like the playoffs are going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into breaking down every game this weekend for you guys, as well as some baseball. I told you when EDJ came back, we're going to get into some baseball, probably talk some MIZZOU portal, and maybe some miscellaneous Chiefs topics here at the end. So let's jump straight into it. Kickoff at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Bills at Broncos from Empower Field in Denver, Colorado. As you said, EDJ, the Jags crushed our hopes and dreams. Yeah, I agree with that statement. I was definitely rooting for the Jags in that game. I mean, let's be real. How do you feel about the Bills coming out of that game? Because we didn't see the Broncos last weekend, as they're the number 1 seed, but we did see the Bills, and I don't know, they didn't look great.
Well, their defense is atrocious. Yeah. I mean, they can't stop the run. Why you stopped running the ball if you're the Jags and Travis Etienne and Liam Cohen, I don't know. I think they were averaging almost 9 yards a carry. I mean, that's just ridiculous, especially for playoff football. Josh played fine. He played good, so the Bills fans can relax. He played good. Statistically, he was good. So relax, go back to your mom's basement. But, outside of that, it just kind of felt like the Jags gave it away, and maybe that's Trevor Lawrence thing. I thought Trevor Lawrence played fine. I didn't see he had that one bad interception on, I think it was a pretend Tampa 2 ended up being a zone coverage. You're better on the lingo than I am when it comes to particular packages, but it seemed like a pretend Tampa 2 ended up being like a cloud or something like that. The Bills fooled them. Just a lot of different stuff there, but it just kind of seemed like if the Jaguars knew how to run the ball more, the Bills wouldn't have been ran out of the building. I think the Jaguars bumbled a huge opportunity to basically just dominate the clock and hold out the game. But, you got to give Josh Allen credit. If the Bills did not have Josh Allen, that would be one of the worst football teams you've ever seen in your life. They don't have a defense. They have a lack of receiver core. Josh Allen makes that team everything it is, and their coaches, So I don't know.
I personally, as a James Cook fantasy manager in Dynasty, would like to disagree with that because James Cook, I think, is what makes this team tick. Now, and that doesn't take anything away from Josh Allen. But I do think having that running game, obviously we're talking about it with Jacksonville, right? You saw 15 carries for 46 yards, 3.1 yards per carry for James Cook. That wasn't his best performance, obviously, but there's so many times where we see James Cook take over a game and open up the field for like you said, a lack of receiver depth at least. Khalil Shakir has really shined. They have 2 good tight ends. And now getting Brandon Cooks, that's huge for the Bills because I don't think that they put themselves in a position maybe to win this game without having Brandon Cooks. And I mean, even just having the threat of what a great route runner Brandon Cooks is. But on the other side, just to kind of sum up what you're talking about with the Jags, I mean, Bashal Tutin, 4 carries, 51 yards. That equals 12.8 yards per carry. Why 4 carries? Why not more? 10 carries for Travis Etienne, 67 yards, 6.7. I mean, that was the story of this game. They stopped running the football. And, I get it, but it's like we see this every year in the playoffs by somebody. It was Baltimore against the Chiefs a couple of years ago where they stopped running the football. And it just doesn't make sense. I get it. You have this Ferrari of a quarterback that you want to use and you want to win that way, but at what cost? I feel like that's been the theme of the season as a Chiefs fan. At what cost do we want to, put our running game aside to then, see this kind of outcome? And you look at the more physical team in the playoffs wins a lot of times. And that's what we saw I believe this game was on Sunday. This was a noon game on Sunday. But that's exactly what we saw. The more physical team won the ball game.
Well, that's exactly right. And, it just, at the very end, you saw it. Josh Allen, the offensive line, pushed him into the end zone. And you talked about it you said on your last podcast on Monday, and I saw a little bit of clips of that. I enjoyed it, of course. But, some Bills fans feel differently about that, but that's okay. And it's not just the Buffalo tush push. And by the way, Josh Allen doesn't need any help. He's like 6'6", 275 pounds.
Right.
He was getting to the end zone anyway, so, let's relax. But the tush push is the most annoying play in the NFL. And thank the Lord the Eagles are out. We'll talk about that here in a second. But it just needs to be gone. Two teams use it. And, it's stupid. It's a stupid play. And everyone's like, well, just stop it then. Well, okay, but it ruins the game. I don't know.
When you're allowed to jump early, because and I get it, it's hard to see as an official in real time of people jumping early. We, on our couches, have the great, perspective of slow motion replay. So I get that. But it's just the way they call it, like the Eagles fumble that they had from the tush push earlier this season. That's a fumble. If you're allowing 2 and 3 waves of the offense to get stopped like a brick wall and let them continue to push forward, what are we doing? The play is dead when forward progress starts. And, that's a whole nother can of worms if you want to get into it of, and really breaking down what is forward progress. In my opinion, forward progress is once you get stopped, there you are. If you get pushed back after you get stopped, okay, let's go back to, where you initially made it. But that's just the part I don't understand. Unless you're going to call the play dead, because the 3rd and 1 that Josh Allen picked up that they gave to him on the virtual measurement, he did not get that. That is not a first down, in my opinion, because the play should have been called dead when he got stopped, not after he's allowed to then, the offensive line is able to get a second wave and push forward again after the initial play is already dead. So, yeah, you got to get rid of the tush push or officiate it correctly and not just give the offense all the opportunities in the world. But yet if the defense forces a fumble, no, that's forward progress. What are we doing? But anyways, not to rehash everything I said on Monday, but that's my opinion. I feel passionate about it.
Well, keep in mind, Papa Show, the Chiefs get all the rules changed, except if it's Josh Allen and the Bills. Then the rules get changed, and everyone's happy because that's fair, right? Anyway, going into the Bills-Broncos, the Broncos have phenomenal defense. We've known this about them all year. The question is, can Bo Nix be reliable? And I think that's a big canny. I know you like Bo Nix quite a lot. But I haven't seen enough reliability from him to be like, boy, that's great. He has the statistics that show he's a real good fourth quarter quarterback. I think those are kind of buffered because of who they played and because of the defense's ability. It's pretty easy to be a good fourth quarter quarterback when your team doesn't give up points, so I don't know. I think, he's okay, but if you watch film on Bo Nix, you watch him play. We get to watch him play twice a year. He looks lost half the time when he's rolling and scrambling out. Go watch some film on Bo Nix. You'll see what I'm talking about. I think you've broken down film on Bo Nix and how his scrambling ability helps him, but it just kind of seems like when he's rolling out, he looks lost. He's just kind of looking for somebody to throw the ball to. Patrick does that, but it's more not by design. It just kind of seems like I don't know where I'm at, So, and I've seen Bo Nix make some throws on the run that are just god awful. They're bad by 20 yards. So, I think a team like the Bills, and this is where the Broncos need to be careful. The Bills are playoff ready. They're playoff season. They've been here a billion times, So the Bills, this is nothing new to them. But this is new to a young Broncos team. It's not new to Sean Payton, but it's new to the Broncos. It's new to a young Broncos team, a young quarterback, a good defense. This is a very losable game for Denver, even though it's in Denver. So the Broncos have to be careful because, they really don't have that good of an offense. But if you're sitting against Josh Allen and it's 14-10 in the fourth quarter, you got to be a little nervous if Josh gets the ball back. I'll give him that. He's very good with 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
We've seen it. So I think the Broncos can win? Absolutely. But is this just a gimme the Broncos? No, I think it'll be a very hard game.
So they come in, as we're recording, 1.5 favorites, do the Broncos. And I agree with everything you said, really, because Bo Nix has been solid, but he hasn't been that guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's not what's making this Broncos team move. That defense is. They've had a solid run game as well behind Bo Nix. But, yes, I do agree with you that I think maybe the fourth quarter stats might be a little skewed just because this defense ain't giving up points late in the game. And we saw it twice this season. We saw it once with a healthy Chiefs team, and we saw it once with the, let's call it what it is, the B team. And he struggled with the B team. And so I don't think that – I do like Bo Nix just because of, he seems to be very accountable. Some of his press conferences is what really got me. His rookie year, and I think I've probably said this on the pod a couple of times, of just a reporter asked him, what happened on that interception. I threw it to the other team. I got to be better. And it just made me laugh, and I thought, you know what, this kid's going to be all right if that's the mentality you got. Dust your shoulders off and keep going. But that is the key to the postseason for the Broncos. Bo Nix cannot turn the ball over. We saw, I think it was 11 interceptions from Bo Nix, 22 touchdowns. Didn't eclipse 4,000 yards. He hasn't had this, killer season like a lot of Broncos fans would have you to believe, but I think he's been good enough to get the Broncos in this position. But also, as you mentioned, I kind of think that the Bills have been here year over year. The Bills took the Broncos out in the wild card weekend last year. And, so I think the Broncos probably have something to prove, but this is the gotta have it year for the Bills. I mean, I talked about it a little bit on Monday, of just and we've talked about it, leading up to this. But there's no Lamar Jackson, there's no Patrick Mahomes, the boogeyman of the AFC. I guess Lamar Jackson in the playoffs hasn't been a boogeyman to Josh Allen, but we know who has, and he's not there.
Well, Burrow's not there either, and
True.
That's been if Josh Allen wasn't there, it'd be Mahomes and Burrow every year.
Yeah.
Which thank God it's not. But, yeah, I agree with you. I just feel like if you're Sean Payton and the Broncos, the main thing you have to do in this game is just keep the ball out of Josh's hands.
Yeah.
It's just – I'm going to play defense. I already know I have a defense that's better than yours. I'm not worried about that. I just got to run the ball for 4 quarters, and if I win 3-0, so be it. And I think that's what we'll see on Saturday. It's such a tear because, the Chiefs-Bills rivalry in the playoffs digs a little deeper now.
Yeah.
But it's the Broncos, and I can't really cheer for the Broncos either. But at the end of the day, I think it's a little bit sweeter if the Broncos lose next week than it is this week. So I'll take the Broncos in this one, but if they lose, I'll enjoy that too.
I hear you. I'm going to take the Bills 24-20 in this game. I think that they, the presence, just the veteran presence, overwhelms the Broncos. I do think that early on, Allen will struggle with the Broncos defense. I think that they'll probably be down at halftime, or it'll be close, but it'll be low scoring in the first half, and I think we'll see the majority of the offense in the second half. But I could see the Broncos getting out to a maybe 10-13 nothing lead early on, or 10-3, 13-3, and then the Bills having to kind of battle back, kind of similar to what we saw in the Jags game, but them have to battle back. But I don't think that Denver has the ability to keep up offensively with the Bills if the Bills get going. And I think all they need is a couple of drives. I mean, honestly, if they can put in 2 to 3 touchdown drives, get at least 3 out of another couple of drives, I think that the Bills will be okay. Because I think even just like you kind of been mentioning Bo Nix looking lost, I think the Denver offense at times, just as a whole, kind of has that feeling. And maybe it's still the growing pains of Peyton's system and trying to get everybody in the right place at the right time kind of deal. But, yeah, I just think the Bills are going to be too much. I think that they're going to get to that AFC Championship game. Now, if they can win that, I don't know if either of the teams I like them against in the AFC title game, but I'll take the Bills here.
That's fair. And I think it's kind of a toss-up either way. I mean, you could go either way in this one. I foresee the Broncos being able to run the clock out in this game. The Bills' run defense is dreadful, and that's what the Broncos like to do. They like to run the ball.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go close to yours, but I think it'll probably be 2017. I just think the Bills run out of time. I think the Broncos just kind of lay on them and smother them for 4 quarters, kind of like a prime GSP fight, and just kind of end it. But I'll take the Broncos in this one in a close one.
Next up, Saturday night, we got the 49ers who upset the Eagles last weekend against the number 1 seeded Seattle Seahawks. Saturday night in Seattle. I am excited for this game and also interested to see how the divisional aspect. Obviously, these two teams have already played twice this year. We're getting to see it for a third time, and the fact that there's 3 NFC teams, the NFC West teams left in this NFC bracket is kind of wild. Just because, you can attest to this. Us growing up, think of the Seahawks team, the Beastquake game. I know I've mentioned that a couple times with the Panthers, but they were 7-9, made the playoffs, and won a playoff game. The NFC West has never been as good as it's been this season. So I'm excited for this matchup, and I got to shout out the coaching staff in San Francisco because what they've done with what they have, all the injuries, Purdy being out for weeks, Kittle going down again. I think that's going to play a fairly significant role in this game with Kittle being out. Trent Williams being out as well, which kind of cost them the game in Week 18 against the Seahawks. And Trent Williams is questionable coming into this as well. Fred Warner being on the IR. Nick Bosa being on the IR. Ricky Purcell is questionable. I mean, shout out to Shanahan and that staff for what they've been able to do. Robert Salah and the whole bunch of what they've been able to do. And now they're in a divisional round matchup in Seattle. What's your first thoughts about this game, EDJ?
Yeah, it's been an impressive job by Shanahan. Just how he's been able to work with, and even having Mac Jones be the quarterback and have relative strong success with Mac Jones. And everyone talked about, Kyle Shanahan was going to draft Mac Jones and this and that. Well, he got to play with him for, however long Brock Purdy was out. I think 6 or 7 weeks, something like that. And he did pretty well. I was impressed. But, at the end of the day.
I'm just going to throw in real quick because I don't know if I've said this on the pod. I've said this plenty on the internet over the last few weeks. But Mac Jones had a better EPA per dropback than Bo Nix. That's all I needed to throw in there.
I think there was another guy that we're going to get to here in a minute. Was it Jalen Hurts, that really good quarterback in the Philly? Was it he had a lower EPA, right? Was that right?
Yes.
The guy that won the Super Bowl, right?
That's
okay. Just making sure. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, it has been impressive. I think Kittle getting hurt really puts a damper on his legacy quite a bit, and he's hurt again. It just kind of seems like that's kind of the story of him. I'm not saying he's not one of the top 10 best tight ends of all time. I think he's earned that, but I don't think he goes much higher than that. I think everyone does it. Well, he's always been better than Travis. Has he? It's just kind of like, well, no. He hasn't been there.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe a year or two. But overall, anyway, that's what you heard on it. For the game, how about Sam Darnold? He did have a stretch where it was not very good in this year. But I talk about a guy who went from kind of being a laughing stock to going to Minnesota, rebuilding himself, had a really good year with Kevin O'Connell. And now, with a new team, and it looks like gets the 1 seed in the NFC. We'll see if he can do it, because I think the biggest question is, can Sam Darnold actually do it? He gets to prove it against a divisional opponent. I like Seattle a lot. Their defense is phenomenal. Their offense is kind of interesting. It's not really anything that blows you away, especially since they don't have DK anymore. But obviously that didn't matter. So, all in all.
JSN, man, he stepped right up.
That's true, yeah. Jack Smith and Joby is an amazing receiver.
Yes. And they got a solid run game, too, between Charbonnet. I was going to say,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Seattle's offense is good. It's better than Denver's. But it's not a blow you away offense. I don't foresee a way where San Francisco wins this game. I think this is too much for them. I think Seattle is much better than them. I think this will probably be maybe a 10-point game. This will be one of the few games where it might get out of hand in the divisional round. I just think Seattle's defense smothers teams too much. They force a lot of turnovers. They're smart. They don't get penalized a whole lot, I don't think. It's just a good football team. And that's not to take away from San Francisco, but I would probably say this is at least – and they play each other twice a year. So if anybody knows anybody, it's these two teams. I would probably give Seattle the nod, like 28-17, somewhere around there. I can't see San Francisco doing much in this one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on how good that defense is. I mean, Mike McDonald has done an amazing job in Seattle, taking over where Pete Carroll left off. Sam Darnold, I mean, I was huge on him going into the Minnesota year last year, and also, still very much in on Sam Darnold this year. Like you said, he did have a rough stretch. They lost to the Niners week 1, 17-13, and then they followed that up with a win week 18, 13-3. So I do think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring, but I like a 13-7. I'll take Seattle 13-7. Jackson Smith and Jigba gets in for one. They kick a couple field goals and call it a day. Because I think McCaffrey will probably get one, but just how good is that offense going to be without George Kittle? I don't know. I think that you're going to have another situation, and I think this defense might be a little too good to get caught with the trick play. I mean, we saw Reed Blankenship come down on that play where I don't know what the hell he was thinking, because, I mean, he was the only guy there. He had a guy right there, running past him, and he still pulls up to try to, I don't know, stop an end around of what he thought was coming. But we've seen Juwan Jennings throw the ball, so I don't think Seattle's going to get duped in that kind of way. Maybe you do something else, but it's going to take all hands on deck if San Francisco is going to be able to get past Seattle. I would say, just to play devil's advocate, if anybody can pull this upset off, it's going to be a divisional opponent like the 49ers. But at what point do they run out of gas? I mean, you can scheme around so much, but how much can you scheme around when you're losing, all of your pieces? I think Seattle advances with a 13-7 victory.
So you're going old school 90s a little bit there on that one, huh?
Yes, sir.
I think one thing we didn't touch on real quick was the Eagles losing to the Niners in general. How do you feel about that? And I know a lot of people have said that that's probably the last game Sirianni coaches as an Eagles coach. I mean, Sirianni hasn't done us any favors, and so, whatever. What's your take on that? Because watching that game, I didn't think the Eagles were all that good. I think they were just a little bit better than we were this year. Just kind of watching them, they just felt like more of a functional us in a way. They just got lucky more times than we did. What's your take on that? Do you feel like Sirianni's gone?
I think if the right head coaching prospect opens up, I think a lot of people were linking Harbaugh to possibly Philly. And I think that if you want to make that leap and say, okay, Sirianni is good, not great. I mean, he had one of the greatest rosters of all time assembled to win a Super Bowl. He's made it to a couple. But, I mean, Sirianni's not a play caller, really. I mean, they've had – one thing you can kind of point to is the offensive coordinator. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I talked about this on Monday. That offense is garbage. The play calling is terrible. You have a swing pass to the back, and really, like against the Chiefs, like that's the only thing I feel like I saw them run all day, or throw a go ball, a moon ball way up in the air and try to get a pass interference. And you've got two very good receivers that can catch the ball. We saw it against the Chiefs, and I talked about that on Monday of, the Jalen Hurts moon ball that he likes to throw, that, McDuffie was a little too scared to go up with Devontae Smith, trying not to get a, pass interference penalty, but, Devontae Smith comes down with it. So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that team is as good as they looked on paper, I guess, is, they didn't pass the eye test. And so, to me, that does go to coaching, because we know there's elite players on that team. They've got Saquon Barkley. They've got A.J. Brown. They've got Jalen Hurts, who can be a very good quarterback when he needs to be and when he's put in the right positions. Throwing the deep ball is not one of his, things he's very good at. So I do think that coaching is a big part of it. So, yeah, I think we could see Sirianni go. But do you let go of Sirianni if you don't have, kind of an ace in the hole or a home run hitter that's coming in there? Like, do you take a chance on a guy, whoever it may be, but if it's like a Harbaugh or a Tomlin or, somebody that has, holds some weight and you feel like you can go win with right now and, create your own dynasty over the next, 5 to 10 years with the players that you have, go take a swing. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. Mostly because I think we're going to see a lot of turnover, even more so. We're looking at right now, what is it, 11 teams, 10 or 11 teams that need a new coach at the moment?
Yeah, something like that. I think it is up to 10 after Tomlin.
Yeah, and we're talking about the Eagles potentially, the Bills potentially, because I would be surprised if McDermott comes back if they don't win the Super Bowl. I think it's just over. Because what are you going to do? If they come back next year and lose again, are you going to give a, I think the Bills are in a hard spot when it comes to that. So, there's potentially 12. I'm surprised the Bengals said Zach Taylor was coming back. I figured that was an easy see you later.
Should have been.
But that owner is super cheap. So, that's not a surprise. But, yeah, I don't know. And I think that's what a lot of teams are in a pickle is right now. They don't know. Who am I going to go get? That's going to help us right now. The Eagles could land a big splash and call Mike Tomlin and say, hey, Mike, why don't you come over here and on the side of, Philly and try to win us a championship, I can see the Eagles doing something like that. The Eagles, to me, are the most knee-jerk reaction franchise out of all of them. We saw it with Andy. We saw it with Doug. Well, not really so Andy, but especially with Doug and then Chip. And then, so right after that, it was pretty much, we'll see you, bye. So it just kind of seems
Chip
like
Kelly do to that team.
Right. Yeah, that too. Yeah. So it just kind of seems like the Eagles are more of a fix it now instead of fix it 4 years from now. So I think Sirianni could very well be on the chop block. If he actually does get fired, that'd be interesting to see. And keep in mind, last year, the Eagles, if they don't get that win streak going, they're not in the playoffs at all.
Yeah.
So if they don't get that win streak and win the Super Bowl, I think Sirianni's gone last year. So
yeah, I agree. And you were coming off of a year where you lost to an inferior Bucs team, in the playoffs in the wild card round.
So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say Sirianni could be looking for a job.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Sunday, kicking off in New England, the Patriots host the Texans in what may be, I don't know. Both AFC matchups are very interesting to me, but I think this one might be more interesting just because how good that Texans defense is, first of all, but also how rough their offenses kind of look. They're looking at being 3-point underdogs coming into this game. What's your first thoughts on this, EDJ?
Well, I think it's first one to 3 wins. It's going to be very defensive variable, and D'Amico Ryan's. It'll be if you're into defense and you love a defensive minded game, you're going to have to watch this one. I know you'll be watching, but yeah. It's going to be a slobber knocker defensively. I think it's going to be phenomenal. Both these defenses are arguably probably two of the best defenses in football. The Patriots are getting there, but I mean, the Texans are there. Right? The Texans are the best defense in football. I don't think that's much of a debate. Just the way they get to the ball and cause pressure and cause problems and take the ball away. It almost seems like mad science. The way how Ryan's been able to basically completely transform that team into a defensive machine has been impressive. I mean, he was a very good defensive player.
Yeah.
But to be able to turn that team into such a monster defensively, it's impressive to see.
I agree. I think they're both opposites, where the Texans front seven is the scariest front seven in football, and then you got the Patriots secondary that might be right up there as the scariest secondary in all of football with Gonzo and the coverages that they run. Ray actually just sent me something today how it was a Dan Orlovsky tweet of saying, respectfully, I say, I can't figure out any coverage the Patriots run, and I don't know as a quarterback for an opposing team like how chaotic that would be trying to decipher what they're doing from play to play. So I do agree with you. I think it's going to be very defensive. So something that I talked to MIZZOU about, because I watched the game with Jamal with the Patriots and Chargers game this past Sunday night, and something I said to him where I don't know what it is about this Patriots team, but they might be the most boring team in football. And I don't know why that is, but it's just their offense, the way they move. I mean, I guess it's just not a lot of big plays. And maybe this is what people have felt like watching the Chiefs the last couple of years. So, I get it because it's been a lot of dink and dump and control the clock, get down the field. That's how they've went on the, 3 straight Super Bowls, was just being able to dominate the clock, and they knew they had a great defense to rely on, and the Patriots are kind of in the same boat. Not a lot of explosive plays, although they will, break off some explosive plays here and there for sure. But I just can't get a gauge on, like, how good is Drake May? How good is this Pats offense? And does it all crumble on Sunday? Does Drake May start getting that pressure and, all of a sudden he's throwing interceptions left and right? I don't know. This is just such a tough game to gauge because also on the other side, C.J. Stroud has had a lot of problems over the last, really all year. But, we saw it in the Pittsburgh game because they kept Pittsburgh in the game all night Monday night until the very end when the defense just poured it on.
Yeah, and that was wild to see how it was basically a 1-point game for a majority of the night, and then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers just completely fell at the map. So someone else said that too. It just feels like the Patriots are very boring, and as we've seen before, I don't think the Patriots give a shit if they're boring or not.
If boring wins, go be boring.
Yeah,
I feel it.
And I mean, if you want to go tell Mike Variable he's boring, then be my guest. I'll be behind you. But I don't think he cares, and I think that's what bugs people about Andy so much. Andy doesn't care. As long as he wins, he could care less what you think. But that's what good coaches do. It doesn't really matter what you think. As long as I win, does it matter to you?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to see is who can basically not turn the ball over in this game. Seems like Drake May's done a decent job of that this year. And obviously everyone's worried about how easy their schedule was, which it was. But, I mean, if you're going to have an easy schedule, you have to spank teams, and they did for the most part. I don't think there was a team that when they won, they won. So, I mean, you got to give them that. As for the Texans, C.J. Stroud and the offense has been a huge problem. It just kind of seems like they've vanished from the past couple of years where they have been pretty good. It just kind of seems like there's an issue there. They seem like they have decent receivers. It seems like they have a decent offensive set, but it just, can they figure it out to continue and win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. A good defense can win you Super Bowl. We've seen it in the past, like teams with Ryan Garcia and the Bucks, years ago. But I feel like the league is so much different now. You got to have an offense that can close out a game. And it just feels like the Patriots might have a little bit more than that than the Texans. And I think Variable is a little bit of a better coach than D'Amico Ryans just because of his experience with Tennessee, and just being able to turn teams around in a quick fashion. I mean, hell, look at the Patriots were terrible for years, and in 1 year, variable took them into the door of a 1 seed in the AFC. So, I think the coaching will be the difference in this one. I'm not knocking D'Amico Ryans. I just feel like variable has the edge here, and I think they'll win based off the edge. Probably 17-14. I agree with you. I can't see this game getting out of hand offensively. I think it'll be close.
That might be a high-scoring game for the teams that we have, 17-14, honestly. But I do agree with you on the coaching front. And like you said, not to take anything away from D'Amico Ryans, I'm actually, funny enough, like in the gym, I've been listening to Bill Belichick's book, and he talks a lot about Vrabel. Like, he basically described the perfect player, and then at the end was like, I'm talking about Mike Vrabel. And so, and he's part of that Pats defense is one of the greatest defenses of all time. I don't know off the top of my head like where I'd put them, but I mean, that whole defense was insane. Between Vrabel, Rodney Harrison, Richard Seymour, Willie McGinnis, man, I could go on, and I'm sure maybe I'm kind of jumbling up some years. Teddy Bruschi, who he played along. Roosevelt Colvin.
Sayal was on there at one point.
Sayal was on there at one point. I think that was a little bit later in the 2000s, like mid to late 2000s, Sayal came over. But yeah, I mean, that whole group together, and I think he learned a lot from Belichick because Belichick was a defensive coach, the defensive coordinator of that Giants team with Lawrence Taylor. He took the whole page 56 just for Lawrence Taylor, like just talking about how great Lawrence Taylor was. I thought that was cool. But to get back to this game, I do think you bring up a really good point about the coaching, because in a game like this, it does a lot of times come down to coaching. And, I talked about it earlier about being more physical. Who can be more physical? Because these are two physical teams. And I think it really gets down to how much can the Patriots offense handle when it comes to pressure-wise, and how successful can they be? Because I think that the Texans can have some success and will be able to put up maybe a couple of touchdowns. But past that, how does the Texans just shut down Drake May? How well can they run the ball? Can Ramondre Stevenson, get out and have a decent game? Travion Henderson, how much do we see of him? I'm looking at the injury report now, trying to see if he's... I don't see Travion Henderson on the list at all, because they didn't hardly use him in the Sunday night game, and that kind of surprised me. Christian Gonzalez is questionable. Nico Collins is also questionable in this game. I think that'll be key. Our good friend Justin Watson is questionable with a head injury. I don't know. You say 17-14 Patriots. I'll go 10-7 Patriots. Patriots hit a last-second field goal to win the game, and we see relatively no offense in this game. Oh, they get the field goal off a defensive turnover.
Yeah, so far, 3 games in and 2 are going to be Storefest according to you. So, I mean, hopefully, let's see. We got one more. This is the last one.
Last but certainly not least, we have, I'm going to go ahead and guarantee it, Papa Show's stamp of approval, this will be the most exciting game of the weekend. Rams at Bears. Bear down, baby. Like, I'm all in on the Chicago Bears right now after that last game. They got Luther Burden, who's been, the best player in Mizzou football in the last, 5 years or so, I would say. At least looking at guys that have transitioned to the league, because Ahmad Hardy is on another level. But Ben Johnson, I've been high on Ben Johnson for a few years now with his offensive coordinating in Detroit. I think he is the best in the game, the best offensive mind in the game right now. And the Chicago Bears open as a 3.5-point underdog. How are you feeling about this game on Sunday, EDJ?
Well, out of anybody, I've said it multiple times. I felt like the Rams were the favorite to win. the whole thing. So I think I'm still going to stick with that. I would be very nervous if I was a Bears fan because the Rams are much better than the Packers. We know that. Obviously, we saw the Panthers give the Rams a run for the money. Everyone got a run for the money in the first round. So I'm not really going to hold that against the Rams. It just felt like everybody was that way in the first round. I think it'll be more of a much more sustainable round in the divisional round. I think we'll see teams figure it out, get more relaxed, so on and so forth.
And maybe a more of a matchup thing too, because the Panthers did beat the Rams in the regular season by 3 points.
Yes, they did.
I think maybe a bad stylistic matchup for them.
Well, yeah, I think you're right, and they had to travel back to Carolina again. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a long flight.
That's a long flight.
But, again, I feel like the Rams are the best team out of the playoffs. They don't have the best record, but I've always felt like the Rams had the best team, the best wide receiver core. It's just a good team. They have the best coach out of everybody remaining. Again, I would just feel very nervous. I was a Bears fan because you came back against a team you play twice a year, who's your heated rival, who you hate more than anybody. You really wanted to win that game, but now you got to play a different team and a really good team and a really well coached team and one of the best coaching, if not the playoffs in football. So you've got a lot on your plate in this one. It's a rookie head coach. Ben Johnson has done a phenomenal job with the Bears. Caleb Williams has really turned it around with Ben Johnson. He made a phenomenal throw when the game was on the line. I can't foresee that continuing. I feel like Sean McVay is going to have something for the Bears in this one. I think it'll just come down to basically coaching again. I feel like Matt Stafford wants his second ring before he retires, and maybe he retires after this ring. It's a possibility. I can see that happening for him. I think the Rams handled this one pretty easy. I can see this getting out of hand for Chicago in the second half. I think the Rams win by at least 3 touchdowns.
Whoa, really? I'm kind of shocked by that.
I just don't think the Bears defense is that good. Okay. And I think watching Jordan Love tear them apart, and yes, the Packers choked it away. I didn't think the Packers were that great. I think it was just a rivalry game. The Packers came fired up. The Rams are good, and I think we're going to find that out.
I think coaching holds Green Bay back. I don't, and so I went live on TikTok that night. I also went live on YouTube, but for some, I had my mic on the wrong track and there was no audio, so that's off in the file somewhere. But there was a Packers fan that joined the TikTok live, and he was saying he wanted LaFleur gone. And I then happened to, catch my algorithm on YouTube, and I watched a video of somebody breaking down the Packers offense and just kind of that game and how LaFleur refuses to identify a wide receiver one, basically, which is probably Christian Watson, and wants to play this receiver by committee because he wants to outsmart everybody, and that's kind of where we're at with the Packers. I will say, watching that game and being able to watch it on Amazon, which every broadcast should have the all 22 live view, it gave me a completely different perspective of Jordan Love. And Jordan Love might be up there, pushing a top 10 narrative or a top 5 narrative, I think, in the top 10, because the placement of his passes is just, it's elite. And watching that view I was able to, just have a whole different perspective of Jordan Love. So, but I do agree with you. I think that the coaching holds Green Bay back, and I didn't believe in Green Bay. I don't know that I completely believe in Chicago, but this is something I said on Monday, is that atmosphere in Chicago and what they have is similar to what the Chiefs had when they went on their Super Bowl run and won the first Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. That does not mean I believe this team's going to run all the way to the Super Bowl and win everything. I just want that to be 100% known. But it can push you over in a game like this, where you've got a very tough team, a very good defense with the Rams, and I was going to mention this to you as you're talking about it. Power ranking, PFF has the Rams as the number 1 team in the league, whereas the Bears are ranked 15th. Their defense is ranked 21st, but their offense is ranked 8th. So I think it really comes down to how well can the Bears execute. We saw a lot of not executing last Saturday night, but they executed when it mattered. But that's also been their kind of Achilles heel because, the Detroit game, you look at that, and they can't execute all game, and they can't, manage to come back in that game. So what's the point? That's also why I kind of correlated them to the Chiefs of 2019 because of the comebacks. This team is okay, we're down by 10 at half. It's time to start playing football now. I don't think they can do that in this game, and it very well could lead to a, lose by 3 scores kind of game. I'm not going to go that far, but I do think the Rams are able to hold off the Bears, and let's say they are going to be able to put up some points. So I'll say 35-28 Rams win.
I think the only issue with that, I agree with the atmosphere. I thought Chicago's atmosphere was great. It just seemed like they were very excited. It's been a long time since we've seen a playoff game in Chicago in the opening weekend. My fear for Chicago is that when you get down, because they'll definitely be down in this game, I feel. But I'll finish that thought. Can you get back up against a much better team than the Packers?
Right.
And I think that's the issue that you're going to have to face if you're a Chicago Bears fan and the Bears in general is can you punch back against a team that's won a Super Bowl, been there before, and, somebody who's probably going to get there again if you don't stop them here. So that's a big question. And the second question would be, if you're the Bears, do you have a backup plan if Caleb Williams is struggling? Can you run the ball more? Can you swing the ball out to the outside? It just kind of seemed like even when the Bears were coming back, it just seemed like they were one defensive strategy away from that game not even needing to have a comeback in. It just kind of seems like the Bears were kind of hog-tied in a way, and you know what I'm saying. With Caleb Williams, it's basically what we've been seeing the last few years with the Chiefs. If Patrick Mahomes is stuffed, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And it just kind of seems like if the Bears run out of Caleb Williams' magic, it could get ugly.
I would like to see them use Monangai a lot more because I almost feel like it's kind of like what Ben Johnson had in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Finally, I got it. But obviously not to that level. I don't think that Swift is near the talent that Gibbs is. Or, we're seeing Monangai in his rookie year, so, TBD. But I think if you get him more involved, I think he's the more physical runner. And he's had some good games this season. So I think putting more trust in Monangai would be the smartest thing going into this game to get you to a point where, like you said, if you get to a point where they're just clamping down and Caleb Williams can't find anything, you're going to have to rely on some hard-nosed football, and especially here in the playoffs. And I'm going to say it one more time because I'll just be a broken record, but whoever's more physical is probably going to win the ball game. So that's my take there. All right, next up, we have not got to talk baseball much. Obviously, the offseason, a little slow, but some things have been happening. The Cardinals trade Nolan Arenado, and the Royals announcing that they're going to move the fences in, I thought was another interesting topic. Bregman went to the Cubs. So some stuff has really been going down here the last couple of weeks finally. Also, we texted about this, but I really like the pickup of Lane Thomas by the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, I do too. It's not one of those a little bit. It is a cheaper, older guy deal, but Lane Thomas isn't all that old. Right. It just kind of it's a little bit of a better deal for the Royals. It's a way better deal for the outfield in general. Lane Thomas, when he's healthy, is very legit. He's a good power bat. He's a great fielder. I think it's a win for Bacola, JJ, and the Royals and everybody involved. The Royals needed that. Kyle Isbell had a phenomenal year in center field. He played great offensively. He's a phenomenal defender. Left field was kind of lacking a little bit. It just kind of seemed like they knew who they wanted in right field. It was either Caglione, or Mark Canna or somebody like that. Center field was Isbell's job. They just weren't sure who was going to be in left field. Adam Frazier played it for a little bit and did a really good job. But I think they needed to know who the true left fielder, and they may still not know, but I feel like that's maybe who they will use. The Royals just needed for sure. Here are our three outfielders, because it just kind of seemed like they didn't have that last year. I think it's a great pickup. It's like I said, Thomas, a great power bat when he's healthy. So if he's healthy all year, I think the Royals just got a home run, no pun intended, in Thomas, and for a good price. We saw Zerba get traded to the Brewers. The Royals got Collins and another pitcher in that trade as well. So I think Bacola's done a great job, and he extended Q for 3 more years. We saw, obviously, the Michael Garcia deal for 5 years. So I think the Royals are kind of doing what they built off of last year. Hey, we're going to put these guys in this position. We're going to keep our guys. We're going to try to add some pieces at a little bit of a lower cost, but if we have to spend more money, whatever. But we're going to try to make a move to keep us competitive. And I think they're doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're just continuing to build what they've been building on over the last few years. And I mean, really maybe even back to, building around the future before Witt was even at the big league level. I mean, they knew what they wanted to build, and I think that that's exactly what we're seeing now, of it kind of coming into fruition, and you've got a lot of very good pieces to, build upon. You got Pasquantino over at first base, Caglione coming up now, and like I said, I really like the Lane Thomas signing, and it does help out in the outfield where the Royals have seen some struggles. So, yeah, I think the Royals so far, I mean, do you need a home run in the offseason if you're the Kansas City Royals? I don't think so, really, and they've just continued, again, to build upon what they've been building.
Well, I find it interesting. And obviously, we found out at the same time the Royals are moving in their fence, was it 10 feet, and lowering it 2 feet to 8 feet?
I think so.
And if you haven't been to Kauffmen, you won't understand. Kauffmen's huge,
Yeah.
and if you played MLB The Show, obviously you've seen it, but at a much virtual scale. But Kauffmen's huge. I think center field is 430, something like that.
I think at one point it was 415. But I think it's been 410.
Yeah, 415. That's right. Yeah, 410. That's right. Which is huge for a center. I mean, that's a lot of ground. So to move it in 10 feet, I think that helps the Royals in general. Obviously, they've kind of struggled with the power. But I think a lot of people have said, oh, well, the Royals struggled offensively in general. They really didn't. I mean, they had that month or two where it was just 2 runs a game, not very good. But outside of those 2 months, they were averaging about 4.5, 5 runs a game, especially towards the end of the year. They were averaging almost 6.5. So the Royals have the ability to really explode offensively. Can they actually do it? We'll see. But, I mean, they've shown in flashes that they can be extremely dangerous offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so then that brings you to the other side of pitching. How do you feel about the pitching going into 2026 if this is what, the Royals are delivering?
Healthy, I think it's great. They lost Hunter Harvey, which sucks. Hunter Harvey was never healthy. But when he was healthy, he was great. I just think, he felt like he needed to go somewhere else, and that's fine. That's baseball. Wish we could have kept him, but it is what it is. The starting rotation is set up. I think the Royals lost Lorenzen too, which is okay. That's okay. He was a fill-in 6th guy, and he just didn't really fit. And the Royals got the trade mid-year. I think they're going to use Bargett and a couple other guys more. So I think that's okay too. The Royals have, like we talked about, the Royals are set. They just got to execute. I think the Royals are one of the most set up teams that are not already, a larger market team to explode. I think the Royals have a really good chance to show a big season this year. And I think their starting five rotation. Now, if Noah Cameron is actually a part of that, I think he will be. But, it depends on where he is. Obviously, Bubic, and Rengis, whenever he comes back to fully healthy, and the Royals are set up. And so I think if you're a Royals fan, you should be pretty excited.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that this season will just be a continuation of what we've seen. Obviously, the Royals missed the playoffs last year, but I think it's just part of the growing pains of, you got the playoffs early, I think a year early, and to where I think some of that steam rolled off for 2025, but I think 2026 is a prime year that they're going to be a dangerous team in the AL Central for sure. Okay, so I want to move over to the St. Louis Cardinals and talk about this because I've actually been kind of getting a little bit of excitement for the Cardinals because I do think that they're moving on the right path. They finally get the deal done sending Nolan Arenado over to Arizona, and I think it's an interesting trade. I don't know if I love the pickup of Ryan Stanek, but Jack Martinez is a very interesting pickup because I was kind of talking to you about it beforehand, before we started recording, but February 19th, 2024, I'm trying to see exactly when he was drafted. Yeah, he was drafted in 2025. That was when he was with the Raging Cajuns in college. So he played at Louisiana Lafayette, then Arizona State, and then signed with the Diamondbacks just July 21st, 2025. Did Jack Martinez. Played a little bit of low A ball, it looks like, and will now be in high A ball for the St. Louis Cardinals. So you get a 1-to-1 trade, a major leaguer for a guy that has just started his journey, and I do think it puts a lot on Jack Martinez to, you got to be a big leaguer, right, one day, or you didn't get anything for Nolan Arenado. But I also do think it's kind of hopeful. The Cardinals are moving for the future, and a lot of what they've done. The only part I don't like about any of this is with Sonny Gray and Nolan Arenado now, they're going to be paying most of the salary in 2026 for both of those guys to play on other teams. So I don't love that, but I do think they're moving in the right direction. You got to get J.J. Weathers to the bigs this year.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that. I thought it was kind of a head scratcher that they got as little as they did for Arenado. I felt like you guys could have got a lot more for him, especially going to Arizona. I feel like Arizona's been trying to pick them or make themselves a more serious contender in the NL. I don't know. I was kind of surprised with how little you guys got, and I think you said the Cardinals have to pay $11 million of it in order for that to be done.
No, 30. I think $31 million. They're only paying. They're not paying $11 million of it.
They're not
the
paying
Diamondbacks
okay,
are only paying $11 million. I think is what it was.
Gotcha. Yeah, so 31. It surprised me. I feel like the Cardinals could have got more. But what is he? He's 34.
30.
How old is he now?
So here's the birthday, 91. So yeah, 34.
So I mean, that could have been part of it too. If he was like 30 or 31, I think the Cardinals could have got a lot more.
I mean, you look at all the numbers. He was a perennial, probably 30 home run kind of guy. Upper 20s in his prime. He was hitting 40. Has a few years of 41. Last 2 years, 16 home runs in 24. Only 12 in 25. Is really,
right.
Look at the average going down from 272 in 2024 to 237 last year.
Right.
On base percentage down to that's the career, 289 for last year. So I mean, Arenado's not been very great, especially in 2025.
But I feel like in baseball, you kind of pay for the name, you know. So I feel like I was just surprised by that. I think the Cardinals are trying to get back to what they used to be. It just kind of felt like the Cardinals, and you would contest to this, the Cardinals at the time when they were really good, it just kind of felt like what the Royals were doing in 2013, 2014, 2015. It just kind of seemed like they were building from within, and I feel like the Cardinals did that a lot during their prime, and it looks like that's what they're trying to get back to. And I think that's what a lot of teams, unless you have, the bankroll of the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Braves, stuff like that. And that's what you have to get back to is building your team from the inside out. I mean, look at Milwaukee. Look what they did with, basically an inside out team, and they were the best team in the NL. They didn't do anything with it. But, I think if you build your team in baseball the right way, you can make a run, obviously. But I think teams just pay for names and hope it works out.
No, I do agree with you. I think we've seen that a lot in this day and age. And, we saw the Yankees doing it through the 2000s, the 2010s, a lot of it as well. The Dodgers now and what they've done, spending billions of dollars on salary and, pushing those down the road, which I don't know, we'll see. But I think comes back to bite them in the ass in a few years. But we'll see how that plays out. I think that covers baseball. I mean, we talked about the Orioles. That's like the biggest thing I can think of. I guess Bregman to the Cubs is an interesting one, and I didn't see what kind of money he got for that. But do you have any thoughts on Alex Bregman going to the Cubs? I think it's dumb on the part of Boston not figuring out how to lock him up, and you traded Rafael Devers for him that you had.
That's the head scratcher. If you're going to get rid of an all-star with Devers, why would you get rid of Bregman too?
Right.
It just didn't make any sense. Or at least maximize your value for Bregman, like you talked about, with Arenado a little bit, or who we were talking about earlier. No, we were talking about Donovan. That's who it was.
Yeah.
Maximize your value, but at least you made Bregman a deal to where it's 1 year and. Maybe trade him halfway if you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to. I don't know, but it seemed kind of odd. And it's kind of weird for Chicago, too, because I felt like they like Shaw a lot at third base. He's a younger guy who has a lot of potential. So I don't know. It just kind of seems – and maybe they'll use Bregman somewhere else. So maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But it just seems like the Cubs were kind of set where they're at. So I think it was just a grab to get more potential. And they could just use Bregman as a DH, which would make sense. He's a good hitter, too. So – we'll see what the Cubs do with it. It just seems like a move the Cubs didn't necessarily need to make. But hey, if you have the money, use it.
I agree. 5 years, $175 million. As a Cardinals fan, I do like this deal just because I hope it blows up right in their face. So that's kind of my thoughts of it. The big money thrown around like that, it hasn't panned out unless you're the Dodgers. I don't think for most teams. So we'll see how it goes for the Cubbies.
Well, let's see. I think so. Other than what we laughed about this, I just thought it was funny. What was your take on Beau going to Virginia? Kind of seems ironic, It's like, well, I didn't get to play Soldiers, go play for them. It's like, well, darn, okay. And I'm sure you talked about this. I don't think you and I have a chance to talk about it. What's your take on Simmons and how you feeling about that? After listening to someone brought up a good point. It kind of feels like he could be potentially a Drew Lock type. I haven't watched enough of Simmons to really know, but from everything I've heard, a lot of people remind him of Drew Lock.
Yeah, I haven't watched enough of him yet either. That's something that I meant to do from Monday to Thursday that I'll have to get more acquainted with Simmons before next Monday to maybe talk about more in detail. But, I mean, look, you get another SEC quarterback. This is the way that I think on 810 I heard it, where they were talking about, look, this is the guy that Lane Kiffin picked as the starter. He picked him over Chambliss. So there's something he saw in Simmons, which, Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin, but there's something that he saw in Simmons over Chambliss. So I do, I like the thought of that. Going to the Beau Pribula part of going to Virginia, yeah, when I sent that to you, I literally just thought hilarious because, yeah, you lose the bowl game to Virginia, and that's where your quarterback goes. I mean, good luck at Virginia for Beau Pribula for sure. I thought it was ironic, but maybe fits his style a little bit more. I mean, I think they're more of a running team and not, I don't know. Look, hey, he can improve from here to next fall, but don't ask Beau Pribula to go out and throw many deep balls or intermediate or, I don't know, handle pressure or anything a pocket quarterback needs to do is not what he's going to give you. But I think it's a better opportunity for him. I think, going to the ACC is maybe a little bit better for Beau Pribula to maybe, look better before he probably tries to go pro. I mean, I don't know if he'll get any time in the NFL, maybe the UFL.
Well, I don't know. Who knows? I feel like I think you're right. I think stylistically it fits more for him. It just kind of seems like that's what Virginia did the whole game, just kind of ran the ball down our throats. So it'll be interesting, but I'll throw him a parade and give him a kiss goodbye.
There you go. I'm with you. Well, EDJ, I appreciate you. Again, good to talk baseball because I haven't talked baseball in a while. It feels like I mentioned the Donnie trade last week or the Donnie signing last week, but I'm excited for NFL football this weekend as well. You got a pick on the national championship before we get out of here?
Oh, good point. Let's see. I think overall, if Indiana just doesn't blow this, I think Indiana is the team to beat.
I agree.
I like Miami's defense quite a bit, but I'll go Indiana 28. Nope, sorry, 35-24.
I don't think I have a score, but I'm right there with you on Indiana. So I appreciate you, EDJ, and until next time, I guess for EDJ and Papa Shiro, out of here.